Hey, welcome. So, have you ever actually seen a company's annual report? It's this huge, super dense document just packed with numbers. But have you ever stopped to wonder who actually reads it? And maybe more importantly, why they read it? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down today.
Look, if you're in the thick of your auditing studies, you know how important it is to get the fundamentals right. This explainer is built to give you a super clear handle on a topic that is almost guaranteed to pop up on your exams. So make sure you check out our other explainers too and keep building that knowledge.
All right, let's jump right in with the big question. A company goes through a whole lot of effort and expense to get its financial statements audited and then published. But who's the audience? Who are all these different people that are depending on this information to make some pretty critical decisions?
Okay, here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll get clear on what these things are. Think of it as the ultimate financial report card. Then we'll meet the three big groups of users: the ones following the money, the ones keeping the business running, and the folks looking at the bigger picture. And you'll definitely want to stick around for the end because I've put together the perfect exam cheat sheet to make sure all this stuff sticks. First things first, before we can really get into who uses these statements, we've got to be absolutely solid on what they are. The absolute best way to think about an audited financial statement is like a company's official report card. Simple as that. It shows how well they did financially over a certain period. But the most important word there, it's audited. That means some independent party came in and checked everything for accuracy, which adds this massive layer of trust and credibility. All right, so let's meet our first group of users. These are the people and the organizations who are mainly interested in the company as a financial investment. For them, it is all about following the money. So first up, the most obvious ones, investors and shareholders. These are the actual owners of the company. They've put their own money on the line, so you better believe they're using this report card to see if their investment is paying off. They're digging into all the numbers, looking at profitability, and based on that, they make that huge decision. Should I buy more stock, sell what I have, or just hold on and see what happens?
Next up, we've got creditors and lenders. Think banks. Imagine for a second you're a bank manager. A company walks in and asks for a huge multi-million-dollar loan. Your first question is going to be, can they pay it back? Well, that audited statement is your proof. It lets you assess their creditworthiness, check their debt levels, and ultimately decide if lending them that money is a smart move or a massive risk.
And we're not just talking about loans. This stuff is critical for massive strategic moves, like one company buying another one. Before you spend billions of dollars on an acquisition, you have to do your homework. That process is called due diligence. And the audited financial statement is pretty much the most important document for figuring out what that other company is really worth.
Okay, so that really covers the money-focused group, right? They're all looking at the company from the outside like it's an asset. But what about all the people inside the business, or working closely with it, whose day-to-day lives actually depend on it being stable?
This next group of users, they really need the company to be a stable, reliable partner. They're counting on the business to keep its stores open and keep things running smoothly, day in and day out. Now, you might be a little surprised to see management on this list, but they're one of the most important users of their own financial statements. It's how they grade their own homework. They use all this data to set budgets, plan for future growth, and make those big strategic decisions that steer the whole ship.
And of course, a company's financial health matters a ton to its employees. Is my job safe? Can the company actually afford to give us raises this year? Is it profitable enough for bonuses? Trade unions in particular rely on these audited numbers during wage negotiations to make their case for better pay and benefits for everyone.
Now check this out. This is a really cool point. Suppliers and customers, they're looking at the very same data, but for kind of opposite, though related, reasons. A supplier is looking at the report and asking, is this company financially stable enough to pay me for the stuff I sell them? But a big customer is asking, is this company stable enough to be around next year to keep selling me the stuff I need? See, it's just two sides of the exact same coin of stability.
So we've covered the people who finance the company and the people who rely on it to run every day. But a company's impact goes way beyond its own walls, right? So who else is watching? And what are they looking for?
And that brings us to our final group of users. These are the external folks, the communities, and the regulators who are focused on making sure the company is playing by the rules and being a good corporate citizen.
The government and regulatory bodies, think tax authorities here, are huge users of these statements. You can think of them as the referees. They use these reports to make sure the company is following all the laws and, most importantly, to figure out if they're paying the right amount of tax. It's all about enforcing the rules of the game.
And this brings us to a much broader and honestly an often overlooked group, the general public. Now, most of us aren't curling up at night with an annual report, but journalists, academics, and community groups certainly are. They analyze these statements to understand the company's economic impact, its ethical behavior, its role in society as a whole. It's a really important window.
Okay, that was a lot of different groups. So the big question is, how do you organize all of this in your head when you're sitting in an exam? Don't worry, I've got you covered with a really simple framework. Just remember these 3 categories. It's that simple. First, you've got your financial users, investors, lenders, acquirers. They're the ones following the money. Second, you have the operational users, management, employees, suppliers, and customers. They're the ones who need the business to keep running. And third, the oversight users. That's the government and the public, the ones watching the bigger picture. If you frame your exam answers around these 3 groups, you are going to nail it every single time.
And that's a wrap. Thanks so much for watching. Seriously, taking the time to really get who these users are and what they care about is a huge step forward in your auditing studies. You're building a fantastic foundation for success.
I'm going to leave you with one final thought. We've seen that pretty much everyone, from a global investor to a local employee, is relying on these audited statements to be the truth. The whole system is built on trust. So, what happens when that trust is broken? It's definitely something to think about. See you in the next explainer.